This is a copy of the Bible study at North Shields Evangelical Church on Thursday, the 30th of January. And today we're going to be using the book of Proverbs to talk about a high risk activity. And I'm not talking about free solo climbing or clearing up landmines or gambling large sums of money at Las Vegas casinos. I'm talking about the high risk activity of getting to know people for the first time. It takes a lot to open up to a person, and it can be specifically dangerous when that person is new to us. Sharing our feelings, opinions, another aspect of ourselves with someone else takes a lot of building up to. And if we make all the effort to open up to a person, and then the other person doesn't listen, or starts talking about themselves, or doesn't think before they respond, or laughs, or criticizes us, or gives us a funny look. Well, if that happens, the chances of us making any effort to open up a second time are near zero. As it says in Proverbs 18, a brother offended is more unyielding than a strong city, and quarrelling is like the bars of a castle. A strong city refuses to let anyone in. And if we offend a brother and sister in Christ, or if we are offended, then they or we may never let the other person into our lives again. So, if getting to know someone for the first time can be a high risk activity, how can we keep the damage done to a minimum? Well, firstly, we're going to think about the eyes and ears, and we have to make use of our best ear and our best eye. I don't know whether you have a good knee and a bad knee, or a good ear and a bad eye, a good ear and a bad ear, or a good eye and a bad eye. Well, Charles Spurgeon, a famous Christian preacher, Charles Spurgeon once said, "I have one blind eye and one deaf ear, and they are the best eye and ear I have." What on earth did Charles Spurgeon mean? Well, I think he was summarizing the teaching of the following proverbs that I'm about to read. About having one blind eye and one deaf ear might be a very good ignores an insult. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offences. Good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offence. Whoever covers an offence seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. If you read all of Proverbs, indeed if you read all of the Bible, you'll soon learn that Christians are to have one working ear and one deaf one. They are to have one seeing eye and one blind one. There will be times when we see or hear something and we are to say something, pointing out another person's error or speaking of how we've been hurt. However, there will also equally be times when we should exercise our deaf ear and our blind eye. As it says in Ecclesiastes, do not pay attention to every word people say, or you may hear your servant cursing you. For you know in your heart that many times you yourself have cursed others. If someone speaks to us inconsiderately, it might be wiser sometimes to simply let it go. We all know that we have ourselves said things that we don't mean, especially when under pressure or when we've been having a bad day. They might be acting out of character, and when they are their more normal self, they may well realise their error and not be so inconsiderate again. Maybe we should commit to always letting the first offence go, but speak up if it is a repeated thing. Also, I don't know if any of you watch the strongest man competition that often takes place every year. You'll often see the strongest men demonstrate their great strength by lifting up some massive great weight. However, there's something that takes even more strength to do, and that's to hold this thing in our mouth. Keeping our mouth closed when we have a strong opinion on something is very difficult to keep our mouth closed. If you didn't hear that, when we have a strong opinion on something, it's very difficult to keep our mouth closed. Keeping our mouth closed takes every muscle in our face. So not only do we need to exercise our eyes and our ears, our deaf ones, we need to exercise our strongest muscle, our mouths. For in one proverb it says, quarrelling is like the bars of a castle. You know, the steel bars of a prison or a castle make it near impossible to break out. Once you've started an argument, it is also near impossible to break away. We cannot resist opening our mouth to defend our position or point out the flaws in the other person. The steel bars of a prison make it near impossible to break out, but the steel bars of a prison make it near impossible to break in as well. Heated arguments are often fruitless. Rarely do we get in to the other person's head to change their opinion or prove our point. In a quarrel, rarely do we get in or get through to the other person. And yet, we cannot pull ourselves away from arguments. Quarrelling is like the bars of a castle. Once an argument starts, we argue for hours and spend the day afterwards thinking of all the things that we could have said. When it comes to fruit, good fruit, quarrels are very unproductive, but a significant amount of bad fruit can be produced. As it says in Proverbs 12 verse 30, an evil man is ensnared by the transgression of his lips, but the righteous escapes from trouble. Opening your mouth can get you into a lot of trouble, but holding your mouth back can save you from a lot. Proverbs 29 verse 11, a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. A vent is something used to control the flow of water. I don't know if you've ever used one of those showers in a hotel. You turn up the temperature just that tiny millimeter and it instantly goes from freezing to scalding hot. Or maybe you've used one of those taps where the slightest twist causes the dribble to turn into a pressure hose that soaks you as water fires back. Often quarrels begin the same way. We open our mouth just a tiny bit. I'll say just one sentence to get my point across. We open our mouths just a tiny bit, and within a minute, every curse word in the dictionary is pouring out of our mouth. We're scolding the other person and getting hit by the insults fired back. It doesn't take a lot for us to open our mouth and start sinning. That's why a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. Keeping our mouth closed is a sign of strength and a sign of wisdom. And not only do we need to hold back our mouths, we need to hold back our mouths so that we can use our ears. As it says in Proverbs 29, if a wise man has an argument with a fool, the fool only rages and laughs, and there is no quiet. The fool communicates his emotion. The fool only rages. He communicates his emotion, but he fails to communicate the why he thinks what he thinks. As a result, he loses the other person rather than helping them understand his point of view. The fool communicates his feelings about the other person's point of view, and the fool laughs, but he doesn't exert any energy to understand the other person's point of view, or explain why he respectfully disagrees. He fails to win the other person's respect by not even attempting to understand their opinion or making the effort to disagree in a thoughtful manner. The reason he's so unthoughtful is because he only wishes to express his own opinion. He doesn't listen. If a wise man has an argument with the fool only rages and laughs. There is no quiet. There is no quiet. There is no break from his words to use his ears and listen to the other person. He wants to be heard, not to hear from someone else. That's why we need to listen with our ears. If one gives in Proverbs 18 it says, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. Before we speak in any disagreement, it is important we use our ears. For just think, arguments happen when one person thinks the most efficient way to do something is 6, and the other person thinks that the most effective way to do something is 2 3s plus a 9 minus the square root of 16 minus 2.5. Which is the most efficient way to do something? Well, if you took the time to listen, you'd realise that it is 6 and 2 3s. 2 3s plus a 9 minus the square root of 16 minus 2.5 equals 6. You know, if we took the time to listen, to try and understand, we'd have realised that we're actually both in agreement in a certain sense. You think it's 6 and I think it's 2 3s. But you need to listen to take the time to understand. We need to take the time to listen. Because often it might be just a case of 6 and 2 3s. Whereas those who fail to listen to others wrongly assume that their opinion is always right and their way is always the best. It says, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. Though churches should separate themselves from false teaching and false messages, they also have the tendency to isolate themselves from those who differ in their methods. This might be a sign that they love their own ways of doing things more than they love unity. As it says, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. This may be a sign of unwillingness to think through the way they do things, and to consider that there might even be an alternative or even better way to do it. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. Not only does listening help us to understand the other person, listening also helps us to give a soft answer rather than a harsh one. As it says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Soft and harsh have to do with the method of communicating the message. Answer word has to do with the message itself. A soft answer, the method, turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. When we fail to listen, our response to somebody is often short. A word such as "you're an idiot" or "lol" or "you are wrong." In contrast, listening enables us to give an answer rather than just a word. An answer is always longer than a word. In our answer, we might articulate back what they've said to us. This will gain their respect because we took the time and effort to understand. In our answer, we might use extra words to express our disagreement more gently. Our method of communication may be equally as persuasive as our message. In our answer, because we've listened, we now understand their opinion better, and so we'll be able to give more detailed reasons why we think our way of looking at things is slightly better, listing the pros and cons of both sides, so that we may both arrive at a good conclusion. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, Proverbs 18 says, but only in expressing his opinion. Whereas, Proverbs 15, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. So we've got to use our deaf ear and our blind eye. We've got to use our mouth and hold back. We've got to use our good ears to listen. And we've also got to use our noses to sense when to jump in and when to get out. Proverbs 26 verses 4 to 5. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes. In these two proverbs, which sit side by side, the author seems to be saying two completely different things. Do not answer a fool according to his folly. Answer a fool according to his folly. That just doesn't make any sense. We're going to think for a moment. Should you drink milk that is a month out of date? Should you drink milk that is a week out of date? Can you drink milk that is a day out of date? Sometimes the right answer cannot be taught in a sentence. Can you drink milk that is a day out of date? Sometimes the answer will be yes. Sometimes the answer will be no. A good nose will enable you to assess the situation and respond in the right way. In much the same way, the situations we face in life are complex, and people are complicated. We need a good nose to assess the right response. Sometimes the right thing will be to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear, to not say something. Sometimes the right thing to do will be to open our mouth. Sometimes we should invest energy in trying to understand someone's opinion and try and persuade them of a different one. Sometimes this will be a total waste of time and energy, and arguing with someone will only reinforce their opinion that they already have. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like them. Life is complex, and we need to have the wisdom to understand each individual person and each individual situation, and that will dictate how and if we respond when we disagree.